Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone doing? Um, I know you guys are surprised that I'm coming up again after yesterday's live, but I told you I wasn't around for 2 weeks, so I'm trying to make up here. And also, luckily for me, my son got a ride from school, so I don't have to pick him up today. So I have a really, really, really great topic. This topic is really important. So sit down, get your pen and paper, and begin to take notes. Begin to take notes. That's how important this is. Okay? So, hello to everyone on Facebook. Hello to the people on Instagram. Hello to the people on YouTube. And for those who do not know me, let me introduce myself. My name is Ifama Odunlami. I'm an immigration attorney here in New Jersey. Hey, Kara. I'm an immigration attorney here in New Jersey, and my law firm is here, but I serve clients in all 50 states. So, um, immigration is federal law, so we're allowed to assist clients in immigration as long as it's immigration, doesn't matter where you live. So, yes, you guys, come on in. I'm really excited to discuss this topic. So, listen up. So, I'm an immigrant. As you can tell, I'm from Nigeria, but I'm a US citizen. So my siblings, who all came here too after I came in here. So is my mom, who I filed for, and because of that, I'm her most favorite child. My siblings say it's not true, but we'll see. Anyway, so we all are immigrants in my family. I have a lot of friends who are immigrants, so we all went through this process that a lot of you are going through, and it is hard, it is challenging, it is nerve-wracking. But my job as an attorney is to help you get through the process as easily, as comfortably as you can. You want to know that somebody's in your corner. We cannot control USCIS, the delayed, the long waits. We can't control that, but what we can control is how you feel, during the process. And it's important for you to know that your attorney is with you, helping you every step of the way, answering your questions, making sure that your paperwork is being submitted properly. So, to that effect, what I'm going to talk about today is red flags. Red flags in your marriage petition. So you may wonder to yourself, I've submitted all this really good stuff, and yet USCIS is still sending me request for evidence, notice of intent to deny. Why? It's a real marriage. Why do they think it's not real? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what are the red flags that USCIS sees that makes them feel that it's not a valid marriage. So as you're coming in, please say hello, tell me where you're checking in from, and then we can get started. So everyone knows a marriage petition. You're married to a US citizen or you're married to a green card holder, and they file a petition for you. Now, the most important thing that USCIS wants to see is that it's a real marriage. They want to make sure that you're not marrying U.S. citizens to get a green card solely for the purpose of getting a green card, or even green card holders, LPRs. They want to make sure that it's what we call a good faith marriage. And what is a good faith marriage? A good faith marriage is that you entered into the marital relationship for the purpose of being with this person and building a life with this person, and not solely to get immigration benefits. All right? So, what are the things typically that we submit? Right? I'm going to talk about it real quick, and then I'll get into the meats and potatoes of the red flags. So, USCIS loves financial commingling. I guess it stands to reason that people put their assets together when they're married, and if you don't trust someone enough to put your assets together with them, maybe then they think it's not a real marriage. So they're looking at commingling of assets. They're looking at joint taxes. You must be filing taxes jointly. I have some people who say, well, their accountant said if they file singly or file married or head of household, or married filing singly, whatever, that they'll get more money. Listen, your accountant has to do with IRS. This has to do with immigration. if you are filing an immigration petition, you should be talking to an attorney, not to the accountant who doesn't know what's going on. They're just trying to make sure that you're putting your books where they're supposed to be and that you're getting the maximum amount of money back, right? But if you're filing for your immigration benefits, you're not in that position. So you need to make sure that your documents reflect your immigration status, your immigration intent, whatever it is you're trying to do, right? This is not the time to try to save some money because your accountant tells you to do that. So you want to have joint bank accounts. Now, in the real world, some people don't have joint accounts because maybe they don't want to fight over money or whatever. But in the immigration world, listen, it makes your life easier, okay? And it's not just for you to have joint bank accounts. You have to show that those accounts are being used by both of you. So if you have a joint account where you have a random $500, next month, it goes down to $300, you top it up, that's not helpful. USCIS wants to see that account is being used for utilities, for bills, for, Uber, whatever it is, just to show that two people are using that account, right? So those are the things that would help you. Of course, there's not one thing that weighs, that is a touchdown when it comes to bona fides, right? But basically, you want to get as much evidence that will help you. And for those that you don't have that information, you want to be able to explain why. All right. So when I'm done, then if you guys have any questions, you can ask questions. Okay. And so let's get started. Hi, Alaji. Alaji says you're the best attorney in US. You received your prima facie. Congratulations. I'm very happy about that too. And Mr. Tusk says, good day. Mr. Tusk, I will answer all your questions when I'm done. Hi, Ayodele. And so let's get started. So I'm going to talk about this in any random order. There's no, just in any order. Not one factor is more important than the other. So let's talk about people with different addresses on the driver's license. Guys, living together is important for immigration. Living together. Now, for some reason, some people cannot live together. For instance, if you are in school and your school is, say, in Atlanta and your spouse lives in Chicago, but you guys know at some point that when you graduate, you are going to move to Chicago, or your spouse is going to move to Atlanta, or maybe your spouse has a job with maybe a H-1B visa that doesn't allow him or her to, change jobs or move. You guys may have a plan in the future to live together. And if that's the case, explain it. Okay? However, if you live in Newark and your spouse lives in Newark and you're not living together, that's going to be a really hard explanation. Or your spouse works at Walmart and you work at, say, Nordstrom, and you live in different states because, you have a job. No, that's not really going to work because there's a Walmart and a Nordstrom in most states, okay? So living together, if you're not living together, that's a red flag. USCIS will take a look like what's going on. Sometimes you have people who maybe they're in a rent-controlled apartment and they don't want to let go of it. That's something we typically see. They don't want to let go of it, and their spouse is not allowed to move in because it's a Section 8 type of housing. That usually could be a problem, but you need to see if if there's a way that you can resolve this so that you can live together, because USCIS really doesn't like that as an explanation. All right. So that's number one, right? Let's talk about number two. Now, in the same vein, if it appears to USCIS that you guys don't live together, you may wonder to yourself, how do they know that? Well, they can run credit reports on you. Your credit report will show where you've lived. They can do a search with USCIS, with the United States Postal Office, which will show where you have lived. And if it shows or it seems to indicate that you have two separate residences, that could be a problem. And another thing is, some people, they don't get around to changing their driver's license because, nobody wants to go to the DMV and be there all day, quite frankly. We know that, right? And so they wait until the last minute until they have an interview, and then they go maybe a few days before to change their driver's license so that it reflects that they both live in the same place. USCIS is likely going to pick up on that. So you want to be ready to explain that. So if you're living together with your spouse and you don't want to have to deal with explaining this, change as soon as you guys start moving together, make sure that your driver's licenses reflect that you're both living together. All right. So now let's talk about people that don't speak the same language but they're married. That's a red flag because USCIS will wonder, how do you guys communicate? So if you're married to somebody who speaks only Spanish and you speak only English, that's going to be a hard one to explain, right? So that's a red flag. Now this is a big one with USCIS, right? If any of your documents look fake, right, that's a problem. And let's talk about fake decrees, fake documents. Typically, fake divorce decrees from other countries, right? I know Nigeria is a country that USCIS just doesn't believe. They don't have any regards for the divorce decrees that come from Nigeria, unfortunately, right? So if your decree looks fake, that's a red flag. And it doesn't matter how bona fide your marriage is. It doesn't matter even if you have 3 kids with your current US citizen spouse. If your divorce decree is not valid, your current marriage to a US citizen is not valid. Okay, you cannot be married to 2 people at the same time. So you have to properly terminate one relationship, one marriage, before you're able to get married to another person. So if you cannot prove that the prior marriage was properly terminated, USCIS is going to have a problem with your relationship and they will deny that petition. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. It will be denied. Now, of course, there's some people who get a visitor's visa and they say they're married, but they're not really married. But they claim to be married so that they have a better chance of getting the visitor's visa, right? So when they come to the United States and it becomes clear that they're not married, were never married, but they lied. Now, that's a different situation. That's a fraud case. That's a misrepresentation case. And that person could qualify for a waiver that will still allow them to get their green card. So that's a different situation from being married and not terminating your marriage properly. There's nothing anybody can do. Now, in some states, such as Texas and a couple other states, when the divorce is properly terminated, the current marriage becomes effective as of the day of that divorce. But in other states, such as New Jersey, New York, you actually have to do the divorce properly, annul the current marriage, then remarry your US citizen spouse or green card holder spouse. So what I'm telling you guys is this. First of all, if you're here in the United States, know this. You can divorce your spouse from here, even if your spouse is abroad. There's no need to hire somebody abroad to try to get the divorce and they don't do it right, and then you find yourself in this predicament. So if you're here in the United States, go ahead and file a divorce. Get a family lawyer, divorce your spouse wherever they may be, all right? And if you have a customary marriage, first of all, just take a look at travel.gov. USCIS lists how they, reciprocity, what documents they're looking for in marriages, in divorce decrees, and in death certificates from other countries. They'll tell you what they're looking for. For instance, in Nigeria, if you're married in a traditional marriage, USCIS does not require a decree nisi or decree absolute. You only need a decree nisi or decree absolute if you're married in a registry, all right? Or if you're married in church and you register the marriage. So these are the important things you need to know so that you give yourself a maximum, chance of getting your green card approved. Okay, makes sense so far? Yeah, am I making sense, guys? If I'm making sense, give me a thumbs up. Okay, encourage me here. So now let's talk about when you're married to somebody who is either has a history of drug addiction, alcoholism, credit problems, bad credit history, has filed bankruptcy, is just, it has, it just has, a lot of things really horrible going on with them in terms of, their finances and their personal life. If you marry somebody like that, and you're somebody who is, your life is together, you have a full-time job, you're very educated, USCIS seems to think that people must be equally yoked to be married. So if you watch Pretty Woman, where the call girl finds the rich, handsome millionaire, that's movie. That doesn't happen in real life, according to USCIS. So if you're married to somebody who is not equally yoked as they see it, right, that's going to be a red flag. So you can't be somebody who has, a bachelor degrees, master's degrees, and you're married to somebody who's a drug addict, who has spent more time in jail than out, who has really bad credit. USCIS will think that that person was paid to marry you. All right. So another red flag is if your US citizen or green card holder spouse has filed for 2 or more people, filed for them to get a green card. That's a red flag. USCIS will look into that relationship very stringently. They're going to really take a look at it. Or if you have married other people, US citizens, and they filed applications for you, even if it didn't work out, And sometimes if you've had multiple marriage to US citizens, even if they didn't file for you, that's a red flag. All right? Okay. So another red flag is you come to the United States on a single intent visa, such as F1, B2, B1, and you get married really quickly. That's a red flag. USCIS is going to think that you came in here with intent of finding somebody to marry because you wanted to continue to live in the United States. Another red flag is is if you meet your spouse and you marry them really quickly. So that kind of life where Pam Anderson married Tom, whatever his name was, within like a couple of weeks. Not USCIS, that happens in Hollywood, but USCIS says if you do that in the real world, they are going to really scrutinize your relationship. Now, nothing I'm saying means that your case is going to be denied. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there are red flags which make them really scrutinized. Excuse me. So, another red flag, this is a big red flag, is if you get married while you are in deportation proceedings. If you get married in deportation proceedings. Now, we all know that if you're married and you're in deportation proceedings, that is a way of getting yourself out of deportation proceedings. It's a way because, if your I-130 is approved, you can move to immigration court and seek to terminate the proceedings and all that. But USCIS, if you're in immigration proceedings and you get married, there's a presumption that it's not a bona fide marriage. So for you to overcome this presumption, when you file your I-130, you must make sure that you request the bona fide marriage exemption. You must request it, otherwise your I-130 is going to be denied. So you must remember this. Even if you have a lawyer, make sure that your lawyer makes a bona fide marriage exemption request when they're submitting the I-130. All right? Okay. So moving right along. Thank you, Ayodele, for giving me the thumbs up. Am I doing good? All right. Sorry, my voice is so crackly. I was so sick last week, and I'm just still kind of trying to, I'm getting a little more energy, but oh my goodness. I think there's a bug going around because everyone seems to have caught something. So, whatever. Now let's talk about another red flag. Let's see. Photographs. Now we all know that photographs are good. USCIS wants to see a slice of your life, They want to see you in pictures with your family, your friends, hanging out, doing fun stuff, going on vacation. But if you have pictures that look like they were staged, such as pictures, non-stop selfies, just you and them, wearing the same clothes in the same location, looking very much staged. You go to Applebee's, taking pictures. That's a red flag, because in this day and age where everybody has a cell phone and you can take pictures, why don't you have pictures of your life? It's not like back in the day you had to purchase a camera or get a disposable and you had to have it, whatever, take it to Walmart and get it processed or whatever. That's not it. Everybody has a cell phone. So it stands to reason that you should be able to capture significant events in your life. You go to a wedding with family, friends, take pictures. If you have Thanksgiving and the whole family is around, take pictures. So you can tell pictures that are pictures that are not staged, and then you have the pictures where it's clear that they're like, okay, let's take like 4 pictures. You're in the city, all of a sudden you're in a park taking pictures. Why in the park? Why in the park? You have kids there. What you go to the park to do? Guys, you really, you have to. I'm not saying this for you to stage pictures. I'm telling you this, number one. Do not do fake marriages. It's a permanent bar. I've said this so many times. It's so difficult to outwit USCIS in this day and age where there's so much technology that if you think something, have you noticed that all of a sudden you're getting ads regarding that you're thinking about? Okay, I mean, I'm just kidding, but I'm just saying that there are ways of tracing people who are in relationships that are fake and are entered into for just immigration purposes. It's not, they can really do that. So you don't want to put yourself through that, because if there's a 204C finding against you, you're likely never going to get a green card, ever, ever, ever. So another red flag that USCIS looks out for is at the interview when they ask you those questions, right? And I know some of those questions, honestly, I think some of them are unfair, because some of the questions they ask, I don't even know the answers myself. I've been married to my husband for 21 years? 21, 22? 22, going to 23 years, right? And some of those questions, I don't know the answers to them. But you better believe if I was in immigration proceedings, I will be paying attention, because it's important. And that's why when your attorneys should really do a prep, ask you guys questions, because sometimes you forget stuff or you have a different recollection. Or maybe, for instance, this is something I've noticed, like you ask a client or a couple, how did you meet? And the couple one says, oh, we met at the Starbucks. And the other one says, we met online. And you're like, well, how did you meet online, or did you meet at Starbucks? There's only one meeting. How is that? What it is that some people think a meeting means the first time you talk. And other people think a meeting is the first time we see each other in person. So when you do a prep, that's the kind of issues you iron out. No, a meeting means, well, whatever you want to define it as. Is the first day you guys, he or she slid into your DM, or is it the first time you actually saw each other in person, right? So now, at the interview, USCIS will ask certain questions. They may ask you your spouse's middle name. Does your spouse have a middle name? How do you spell your spouse's middle name? And for a lot of you Americans who are married to foreigners who have like really complicated paragraph names, you should learn it. It is what it is. That's a mark of true love. You should learn it, And sometimes they may ask you about the family members. When was the last time you talked to the mother? Have you ever met the mother before? And, these are questions that it seems that you cannot get wrong. But honestly, sometimes, people don't remember things. They don't recollect certain things, right? So those are the kind of things that you want to prepare. And I feel that if your total package looks good. USCIS is not going to be digging for that little random mistake that you made, right? But if you have a lot of red flags all over your case, that's when any error becomes like a big deal. All right. So what else? Now, another red flag is when your spouse, you have children from other relationships that don't live with you. So you have young children, say 3 and 2, and they live with an aunt or mom, and then you and your spouse live together, but you're all in the same, vicinity. It makes no sense, So it seems USCIS looks at that as you're faking the marriage, but your real home is with your kids. But until maybe the person gets a green card, you're gonna just hang there, and then maybe go from time to time. I don't know. I think that's what they think anyway. So I don't understand it either. If you have children, unless it's with another parent who has custody, it's kind of a red flag if your kids are not with you, unless they've been taken away from you by the government, or unless there was a pre-arrangement for them not to be with you. All right. So let's talk about one other red flag: age. Age. Huge age disparities is a red flag. And I think, this is not scientific, this is just what I think. Anything over 10 years, USCIS kind of takes another look. Now, I find that if it's 10 years, even maybe 15, and the man is older, I don't think it's as problematic for them as if it's a woman that's older, especially in certain countries that that they don't typically marry women older than them. Like here in America, people just get married. You see somebody who's 26 dating somebody who's 50, is not a big deal. But in Nigeria, that's not typical at all. So if you see a Nigerian woman who is 50, no, if you see an American woman who's 50 dating an African man who's 26, USCIS will look at that suspiciously. But honestly, that doesn't mean that it's not a real relationship, because I've seen that with this generation, anything really goes. Really, anything goes. So now, what else? What other red flags? Sorry, I have to drink water because when I talk a lot, I start to cough. So let's see. Another big one is if the immigrant is from a country that's supposedly notorious for fraudulent documents, or for coming to the United States and never going back. There's, countries like Nigeria, Russia, a lot of them, they, USCIS tends to scrutinize those relationships, right? And USCIS also thinks this is a red flag. If you're married to somebody and you don't know their work schedule, they always ask this question: when does he come back from work? When does he leave for work? Or both of you work opposite schedules. That way you don't even ever get to see each other. They don't seem to understand that people just work. You work where the work is. If it's night shift, you do it. But for USCIS, they're like, well, work night shift all the time. Your spouse works a day shift. When do you guys see each other? It must be fake. That's the way they think. Like I said, if every other thing looks good, then it's not a big deal. So that's why it's important for you to know the red flags, so that you present your case, as positively as you can. You want to minimize your red flags, okay? Even if that's the way you typically want to live, right? But if you're in immigration if you're filing for your papers, you really want to try your best not to give USCIS reasons to suspect that your case is fake when it's a good faith marriage, okay? So what else? Let's see. I think that's pretty much. Oh, another big one. Oh, this is a really big one. If either spouse, either the U.S. citizen or the immigrant, has a child while married, to somebody, has a child for somebody else while married. Now it happens, people cheat, but like I said, the USCIS world, it's almost like they want you to have a perfect marriage, even though the law says that you cannot expect the immigrant to have a relationship that's different or more perfect than a U.S. citizen, but, you know, that's just the way it works, So but does that mean that your case is going to be denied? No, you have to be able to explain your red flags, explain what happened, We've had cases where people had out of wedlock children, and we're able to explain because people make mistakes, and sometimes it breaks apart the family, sometimes, it doesn't. So, all right, guys, that is that for now. So let me see what my questions are. Thank you guys for hanging in there for so long with me. Let's see what the questions are. So, Mr. Tusk says, from your observation, how long will it take an I-751 based on cruelty to be fully adjudicated and get 10 years green card? Mr. Tusk, thank you for hanging in with me. I know that you asked that question a long time ago, but I wanted to just finish this. Now, you do know that USCIS is given, once you file the I-751, they're giving you a 48-month extension letter. What does that tell you? I don't know. It tells me that they're going to take longer. They're giving themselves longer times. So nobody really knows what that means, whether it's going to take all of the 4 months extension, or they just don't want to have to, maybe they just want to give themselves a little wiggle room. I don't know. But I feel that if they're given 48 months extension, it might be taking a little longer. But again, it depends, because some cases happen really quickly. We've had VAWA cases which are typically take 2.5 to 3 years. We've had VAWA cases approved in my office in 7 months. Amazing, We've had work permits approved in 28 days. This is not typical, but sometimes it does happen that cases move faster. So I hope for your case, or for the case of a family member that you're talking about, I hope they get theirs sooner. So Alaji says, how long does it take to get my EAD? Alaji, it could take anywhere, same thing. It could take anywhere from 4 months to 10 months, maybe even a year. The processing guidelines are saying it's taking about 10 months, right? But some of them come earlier. Some of them take late. I think if you haven't received your EAD by 10 months, and we check the processing guideline, the processing time, and it says that it's about 10 months, we typically at that point start trying to figure out what's going on. But the EAD is just a wide range. And another thing we've noticed is that the EADs, when they come faster, they don't come with the I-131, because USCIS is really trying hard to make the work permits come faster, because they've been so delayed. So I think they're working and pushing the work permits, and the travel documents are just taking a back seat. So, I hope that helps. Hope that answered your question. Then Mr. Tusk says, I have a green card. Can I file for my kids who are in the States, but I found out that their mom filed an asylum for them? Yes, Mr. Tusk. Without knowing all the information in your case, if you have a green card and the children are under 21, you can file for them. Lucky for you, the priority date is current if your kids are in the United States. If they're not in the United States, the priority date is not current. So based on just this information, you can have multiple petitions going. Just because there's an asylum file for them doesn't mean that somebody else cannot file for them. So you might want to talk to your lawyer and, see what you can do with that, okay? And Mr. Tusk has another question. I filed for I-751 based on cruelty and I submitted all documents for the cruelty, divorce, and proof of marriage. Is it possible I'll get my green card without an interview? It's possible. Anything's possible. We've gotten a lot of green cards in the past month without an interview. It depends on your submission, depends on the officer reviewing your case, depends on your immigration history, depends on a lot of things. But I would say, you don't have any control over whether or not you're going to get an interview or not. So honestly, just live your life and just try to not to let this immigration process stress you, because it's really stressful. So don't worry about whether you're getting an interview or not. Just, hang in there and just take it one day at a time, okay? And then Murit Best says, we're in a relationship for 12 years, but came here as B1, B2 3 months ago. We'll marry soon. Is it considered intent to stay? So Murit Best, that's a really, really great question. So when you come in with a B1, B2, it's a single intent visa. You're supposed to come and you're supposed to go back. However, there's some people that come here and at some point they change their mind and they want to stay. So the issue is, at the time you submitted your petition to get the B1, B2, did you intend to come to the United States to stay? If you did, then that's, misrepresentation, and that could be problematic. Now, in the past, USCIS used the 90-day rule to determine when there was some misrepresentation. Now, the 90-day rule says that if you file a petition or you get married to a U.S. citizen or green card holder within 90 days of coming to the United States, there's a presumption. It's a rebuttable presumption, but there's a presumption nevertheless that you intended to stay in the United States and lied to come in here on a B1, B2 visa. So now that 90-day rule is no longer in place because it's not being applied uniformly. So in essence, there's not really a 90-day rule anymore since 2021 anyway. So I think that the intent to stay is based on your story. You have to be able to explain that you didn't intend to stay, if that's and why you decided to stay. And it all depends. You have to tell your story. But I hope that was helpful. All right. But if you want to talk about this some more, give us a call, Murit. Let's talk, okay? Ayodele, thank you for that thumbs up. And then Julio says, how long USCIS take for medical exam request? Well, Julio, it depends on what stage you are. I'm not really sure I understand this question, but it depends on what stage you are in your petition, and it depends on what your petition is. If you're filing a VAWA, it's going to take a long time before they ask you for a medical exam request, because the VAWA has to be approved first, and then the case has to go to the I-485, and so it depends. If it's a marriage case, typically they ask that question when they ask you for a medical exam when they're ready to adjudicate your case, and that's actually a good sign, because for all of the cases we've gotten RFEs for the medical exam, we've gotten a green card in the mail. So it's really a good sign that you're probably going to get your green card in the mail. So I hope that happens to you, Julio. All right, Aziz, let's see. If my asylum case was terminated and I have got my green card through VAWA, can I travel to my home country? Aziz, I think you need to, I need to get more information about this before I cannot give you legal advice on a case I don't know anything about. So I think if you want to talk, you should talk to a lawyer so that they can really get into the meat and potatoes of your case and give you really good advice, okay? Mohammed says, my VAWA case C9 category transferred from NSC to Chicago. How long work permit come? I don't know. If I knew, I would be a magician. Everything with USCIS is who the heck knows, So if you need your work permit because you are in danger of losing your home, being homeless, you might want to maybe expedite request, do an expedite request, right? Chicago is proceeding fast. Yeah, but I can't tell you how long it's going to take. Natalia says, I filed a VAWA case and a work permit. I only received a prima facie determination, but I haven't received any work authorization. How long could it take? It was a year ago. Natalia, that's actually long, because it's really taken, I would say 10, really, like I say, if at 10 months, 11 months, we haven't gotten a work permit, we begin to inquire into it. So, are you sure you filed a work permit? Because a lot of times when people say they didn't get a work permit, we find out that their lawyer did not file a work permit, an I-485, an I-765, an I-131, they didn't file that. So you might want to put an inquiry. First of all, depending on where you are, you might want to first of all find how long it's taking for work permits. And if it's less than a year, then you can do an e-inquiry with USCIS, okay? Because they won't do an e-inquiry or respond to an e-inquiry. They won't even let you do it unless it's past case processing times. And Mohammed says, can I call USCIS call center to get my EAD receipt number C9 category? You could try. Why not? All right. Alaji says, how is VAWA different than a regular marriage-based green card? So Alaji, that's a really great question, right? VAWA, as you know, stands for Violence Against Women's Act. You know it applies to men. You know it applies to women, applies to children. Now, in a regular marriage petition, your U.S. citizen spouse or your green card holder spouse will file a petition for you, right? And that petition is based on their status. They are the ones filing the petition for you. You're the recipient. It's their petition. So if you get called for an interview, for instance, and your spouse decides not to come for that interview or decides to withdraw their petition, you cannot get that green card because it's their petition, right? However, with VAWA, VAWA is a self-petition. You're not relying on your U.S. citizen spouse or your U.S. citizen parent or child to file for you. You're petitioning for yourself based on the fact that you've suffered some sort of abuse in your relationship with either your spouse, your parent, or your U.S. citizen child who's over the age of 21. And so with VAWA, you're able to, take control of your own petition. And the reason that this USCIS, this act, VAWA, came into being is because USCIS realized that a lot of immigrants were in really abusive marriages, but they were afraid to get out of it because they felt that they needed to get their green card through their spouse. And I guess also it showed that there are people who were taking advantage of their spouses because they were petitioning for them. So VAWA is really to empower people who have been abused, right? And if you're in an abusive relationship and your spouse is abusing you physically, mentally, psychologically, or in any manner, think about filing for VAWA because you don't need them. If they're not showing up for the interview, think about filing VAWA. Don't show up there and get denied. Because when you get denied, guess what? You lose the amount of money you paid for the I-485, the adjustment of status. But if you convert your case to a VAWA case, you can have the I-485 moved to your VAWA petition, and you don't lose your work permits if you've received it by then, and you don't have to pay another filing fee. So, Alaji, in a nutshell, that's the difference. There are more differences, but in a nutshell, I love to talk about VAWA, so I can talk about it for hours. So, Crystal Pinnock says, we live in different states because I have my LLC and other papers for my restaurant business here. And he works for a company that doesn't have location in my state, but we share lease bills and accounts. So, Crystal, I don't know your situation, but let me make a suggestion. So, how often do you guys see each other? I would want you to document that you're either flying to and fro, or you're taking the train, or you're driving down and you're going through, what's it called? Easy Pass. You just have to have an explanation and have a plan, maybe when he gets his work permit, he might be able to get another job there, but it's helpful for you to show that you're seeing each other regularly, right? And you continue to present as a married couple, all right? I hope that helps. Okay, all right, I think Natalia, I found work and I'm located in Connecticut. So I think I asked the question. So off the top of my head, Natalia, I would have to check the, what's going on in Connecticut with regards to their case processing. So if you, off the top of my head, I wouldn't know that information with regards to the work permit and how long it's taking for people who file from Connecticut, right? And Crystal said he comes from every weekend, but during the week he stays with his relatives close to work. So Crystal, I mean, it sounds plausible to me. So I don't see a problem with it, but it's a case that I would say that you really want to make sure that every other thing works. And when you go for your interview, you guys really need to be prepared to answer. I mean, if you have huge inconsistencies, that's gonna be a problem. But if everything else works fine, everything else shows. If your other evidence is solid, then this one thing should not be a problem. But I can't really tell unless I see what your submission is. So guys, it's been real, and thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you got a lot of good I hope you got a lot of good stuff from this. So if you found this helpful, please like, share, follow, and don't forget to subscribe. Okay, until then, take care. Bye bye.